Hello and welcome to the Gestaltist. This is part 4 of our intro to account-based marketing. And in part 4, we're going to be talking I'm going to share with you all about targeting and content. So let's dive right in. So the first thing we're going to just highlight in the last episode, part 3, we talked about going out and building your set of data that you're going to use for this account-based marketing process. In this section, again, we're going through how are we going to target all of those people? How are we going to, now that we've built the data, we know who we're going after, the titles, we have an exact list of who we want to talk to. How do we put that into action? So first of all, it's all about list segmentation. So now that you've built that, you're going to want to upload and segment that data in all of your systems. So for example, you're going to want to take everybody in a certain industry and with certain titles, break that into lists and upload it into your CRM, into your marketing automation system, into your retargeting tools, and make sure that the verbiage and the nomenclature, basically the naming of those lists, is consistent across all of those platforms. Another part of this is making sure they're all in sync. So if later you find out that one of the emails is bad through an outbound email campaign, you can go in and change that, and it's going to be pushed, that new email address is going to be pushed to your CRM and the other tools. So you're going to want to make sure that you have some good naming schemes around how you segment those lists, and it's consistent across all of the organization. That goes back to a lot of the ethos and what we talked about in part 1 of ABM around aligning sales and marketing. If they have the same name, marketing's referencing a certain list the same way sales is referencing a certain list. You can actually go in and say, did marketing target this list with ads and messaging? And also, after they did that, did sales follow up with that list? One may be in the marketing automation system, one may be in the CRM system, and you can look at the activities to see, are those two organizations aligned? So this is another way that you can create alignment with just the naming and the follow-up and the management around using that information. Now, what is targeting? What are we talking about when we're targeting and retargeting, at least from a marketing perspective? What I'm generally referencing is, from a marketing perspective, is getting the ads and the copy and the brand in front of all of those targets. So what we like to do is we went out and we gathered all of that data. Let's say we have 1,000 people that are CEOs and HR leaders or decision makers based on your sphere of influence, the people you need to talk to in order to sell your product or service. We take that list of email addresses and we upload that list into a targeting system. So an example would be AdRoll. I'm a big fan. I love using AdRoll. We upload that entire email list into AdRoll. And what that's going to do is it's going to go find people out on the web. It's going to find those people with that email, and it's going to make sure that they see that advertising campaign, that messaging that you have in place. So if you're trying to get in front of 300 specific CEOs and show them your case study that's tailored towards them as a CEO and tailored towards their industry, you upload that into AdRoll, you launch the campaign, and it's going to target them. Some other ways and other tools out there to do this are, any social tool like LinkedIn, Facebook. A lot of them allow the uploading of these lists, so you can target those specific people. Terminus is another amazing company that is all about ABM, so you can actually just pick who you want, what their titles are, their level, and target them as a company. Terminus is definitely a more robust tool for targeting than AdRoll is. It comes at a higher price point, but lots of value, lots of configuration from that tool. So that's all about targeting. Retargeting is a little bit different. Retargeting is where you visit a website, and after you visit that website, they've set the cookie in your browser, and now you see their ad all around the web. So there's lots of ways to do retargeting as well. And I like to differentiate targeting and retargeting, because retargeting means they already visited your site. Targeting is more around uploading an email and really trying to target them at the outset, right? They've never visited you before. So that's a little bit about targeting and retargeting. So we've built the data and now we're targeting who we want to go after. Now, what are we trying to do with the targeting and retargeting? We're trying to create what Sangram from Terminus actually calls the halo effect. And there's probably other people who've coined this or not, I'm not sure. But really, we're trying to create the effect long before the sales outreach starts. So we want them to see our brand, our case studies, our ebooks. We want them to see that messaging before we ever reach out from a salesperson. I know we've all had those LinkedIn messages where it's like somebody connects and right when you connect back, they ask you to do business with them. Hey, do you need any website service? Hey, we want want to offer you these SEO services. There's you never heard of their brand, you never heard of them. There's no relationship there, there's no trust, and they're almost immediately asking for the sale. I don't generally like that methodology. I'm not a big fan of that methodology. So how do we get around that? How do we warm them up beforehand? Well, we make sure that they're seeing our information. And so we create this halo effect by targeting them well in advance. My preference, 30, 60, maybe even 90 days ahead, we're targeting them and making sure our message is in front of them before we ever start the actual sales outreach from a salesperson to SDR, BDR, whoever it might be on your team. So that's the halo effect that we're trying to create. Now, when we're showing them content, when we're doing this advertising campaign, the ultimate outcome or the ultimate strategy really is to be able to show them content that is very specific to them and speaks to them. So one thing I look at is what I call the content matrix. And I'm sure there's lots of other content matrix scenarios and content out there. But what we're really looking at doing is we're looking at saying, what is the title and what is the industry? And in that cross section of that title and industry, what kind of content are we pushing in front of them? So if we're trying to target somebody, we can do a generic ad and say, here's our business, here's who we are, and maybe we're just doing a general campaign so that they're aware of our services. The more tailored version of that takes a little bit time to build is really saying, okay, you are a CEO for a construction company. And we're going to come up with a case study where we worked with a CEO and we have testimonials in that case study from the CEO, and the case study is on a construction company similar to your size, even in a headcount and employee size. And we're going to target them with that case study, make sure the messaging really is conveyed that we know you. We've done work with companies like yours. And industry-specific content always trumps very generic content because that person really feels like you get it. You've done it for other clients like them. And so a lot of times we'll start off broad before we have this content, but we start to look at this matrix. And that goes back to the list segmentation we talked about in prior sections of this video series, where now we're starting to segment the list not just on industry, but we're also segmenting the list on title because we're able to give very specific content that we want to put in front of that person. So you'll really want to work on building out your content matrix and making sure the content that you're putting forward speaks to the title and the industry of that individual. So that is part 4, all about targeting and content. In part 5, we'll be talking about the sales outreach and the cadence that we follow, some of the other material that's out there around sales outreach and the cadences that are available. We look forward to sharing this content with you in part 5. Thank you.